everyone, and it is time for another edition of the Sports Wrap with Michael Kravetz. And today we're going to have a fun-filled edition, so to speak. Not a whole lot of fun for the Pittsburgh teams, well, for most of them. But we're going to start it off with the Steelers. The Monday night game last night, hosting the 1-7 Kansas City Chiefs in what I thought was going to be a monumental blowout. And it was pretty much a statement game for the Steelers, because if they wanted to cement that they were a true contender for the Super Bowl out of the AFC, they needed to blow out Kansas City, at least beat them by 2 touchdowns. And in this game, it was the total opposite. The weather was bad, it was rainy, cold, but they were able to pull out the victory in overtime, 16-13. It all started... Kansas City got the ball first. They were running the ball pretty effectively early on with Charles, and the play action was working because the Steelers were biting on the fake, and Castle was able to hit some receivers and tight ends. So it was working, and Kansas City actually had a lead for the first time this year. They have not had a lead in regulation since the final game of last year, and they actually had a 10-0 lead early on. But the Steelers were able to bounce back with Ben at the helm. They tied up the score 10-10 at halftime. And then early in the third quarter, Ben had to leave the game. He injured his shoulder, and he did not return, and Leftwich had to come in for Ben. And he did adequate, to say the least. He was not spectacular, not stellar, but he did his job, and he helped the Steelers win the game. Now, in the game, the running game for the Steelers, which, Dwyer had 2 straight 100-yard games. Last week it was Redmond. They did not perform as well as they did in the other games. And I'm going to give credit to Kansas City's defense because they have a lot of playmakers on the defensive side. They got Eric Berry, they got Tyson Jackson, Tamba Ali, Justin Houston, Glenn Dorsey, Don Terry Poe. They have a good defense, but you felt that, okay, the Steelers' offensive line, after pretty much dominating the Giants, they could have dominated Kansas City, but it just didn't happen. Dwyer led the team, 19 carries, 56 yards. That was barely under 3 yards per carry. Redmond had 8 carries for 21 yards. Baron Batch was not used at all, and Chris Rainey was not used at all in the running department. And Ben, with the time he was in the game, was not very efficient either. 9 of 18 for 84 yards. So it wasn't spectacular by any means. But he was able to still spread the ball around. Went to Miller, Wallace, Sanders, Redmond, Paulson, Cautry. But with Brown out, they needed to have some production from everyone. And they did get that, but it just was not a good offensive game, to say the least. Sean Sweezum pretty much saved the day because, once again, he was perfect. 3 of 3 for field goals in the game. Did his job. And basically the Steelers survived, and they won. So, they survived. They took care of business. A win's a win. I don't care what anyone else says. Yeah, Kansas City is probably the worst team in the NFL. But they were able to win. Because in overtime, Castle made the interception. He threw it. He said it was deflected. Timmons caught it, took it down, and the Steelers kicked a field goal right away. 23-yard field goal in overtime. Sealed the game. There was just a lot of problems late in the game. Steelers were up 13-10. 4th and 15. The Kansas City, I believe they were at their around midfield. 4th and 15, and they completed a pass to Dexter McCluster. Or my mistake, to Dwayne Bowe. And Ike Taylor slowed up on the coverage on that play, and it allowed Bowe to get past him and make the catch. That was unacceptable. And personally, after they made the field goal to go into overtime, I thought the Steelers were going to lose, just the way things were going. But in the back of my mind, I was thinking, Kansas City, they make mistakes. They find ways to lose, and they did. Going into the game, turnovers was the big key. The Steelers could cause some turnovers because Kansas City turned the ball over now 30 times. The most by far of any team in the NFL. You get turnovers, you're going to win. They did not get any turnovers until the very end, and that's what helped them win the game. The receivers, though, early on, when Ben was in, they were dropping a lot of balls. They couldn't find anyone open. It seemed like Ben was just throwing to Heath Miller and David Paulson most of the time. So I'm a little worried about that. Obviously, the condition of the field has something to do with it, and the rain, of course, as well. But you just got to hope that they get the team back into cohesiveness for next week. And Wallace had an amazing touchdown grab. That might have been the play of the game. One-handed grab in the end zone. The touchdown made it 10-10. Without that, Steelers would have lost. So that was really key. And when Leftwich came into the game, I was really surprised. They went to a pass right away, a play-action pass, and it was not even close. So the question then becomes, for next week, you just got to say the Steelers are done with Kansas City. They're glad that game was over. They survived. That's all they needed to do. They won 6-3, game behind the Ravens. They play them the next 2 out of 3 games. Next Sunday night, I'm assuming Ben is not going to play because he left the stadium in the third quarter with his wife, went to the hospital, had MRIs, had x-rays. So far, they have just revealed that it's a sprain and that he may have hurt his ribs, too, on that same play. I'm assuming he won't play. I know he's going to give it his all, but I don't think he's going to play. So, if you think Byron Leftwich is going to be the one to help this team have a chance to beat the Ravens, he should start. But you know what? I still think Charlie Batch deserves to start because he has proven that when he has come in, they still can win games. And if you remember, 2 years ago, when Ben was suspended the first 4 games, Batch had to come in when Dixon was injured. Leftwich was injured in the preseason. They almost beat the Ravens. Now, I mean, almost doesn't count, but I think Batch provides the best possibility to win. And obviously, there's no offensive coordinator, and you're saying, oh, well, they probably worked with Leftwich more than Batch. Well, that may be the case, but I just still think Batch, he's, I believe, 5-2 as a starter for the Steelers when he's had to come in. That's pretty good numbers. I mean, I think the Steelers have the best backups in the league. They have the most veteran backups. So that should keep them in the game. Question becomes, how long will Ben be out? If this is a long-term thing, they're in trouble. If he will be out the majority of the season, the rest of the year, I really don't think they're going to have a chance. Because the only games that I could see them winning without Ben, for sure, I think they could beat San Diego at home, could beat Cincinnati and Cleveland at home. That's 3 wins. Maybe a win on the road if they're lucky at Cleveland, at Dallas. I don't think they'd win at Baltimore. So if Ben is gone the rest of the year, worst case scenario, I think the Steelers would finish 9-7. Best case, 11-5. And with the way the teams are playing right now in the AFC, 9-7 might get you a wild card spot. Because San Diego and Cincinnati and Tennessee are the next 3 in line. So as long as the Steelers don't finish tied with any of those teams, I think they're going to get in. So Tolman has a tough decision. If Ben is out for a while, who's he going to go to? They're probably going to stick with Leftwich. And I hope he does well because he did a really good job with Jacksonville when he got drafted with them. He has a 24-25 career record as a starter. He's been around, of course, multiple teams. Tampa Bay, Atlanta, and Steelers twice. So you just got to hope that he can grasp enough plays so that they don't have to do the basics with him, that he can actually, they have some special plays for him to work because you can't rely on the run. If it's Redmond and Dwyer against the Ravens, it's not going to work. Which brings me to my next point. Which of the Steelers' injured players will return? I think Mendenhall is going to be ready. Brown will be back. And I think Polamalu is going to be back. Now, Ryan Clark, who left the game late in the fourth quarter with concussion-like symptoms, if he's healthy, their whole defense will be back. And I think that's key. Because you have that type of defense, you're going to have a chance to win. And with Mendenhall, you have 3 running backs who you can rotate, bring in fresh legs. That'll help too. And since the game's at home, I still give the Steelers a good chance. And I would still pick this team to win, even with Ben not playing. Just because it's at home. And that emotion, I think, and the fans would carry this team. So I am going to pick the Steelers to win. regardless of if Ben plays or not. Now, if Mendenhall and Brown and Polamalu don't play, maybe a different story, but I'll still go with the Steelers barely, just because I just think because the home. I think home is a difference. I think they will go undefeated at home this year, which is what I said at the beginning of the year. They have one of the best home crowds, and I just think that they're going to be able to finish undefeated at home. Now, one of the bad things I saw, though, in the game last night, a lot of the fans left the game, it seemed like at halftime. And I know the weather was bad, but it was a 10-10 ball game. And if they were, embarrassed because they were tied with the Chiefs, I don't care. You pay all that money to be at those games. Some people only get to go to one Steeler game, once every, 3 or 4 years. So, I was dumbfounded by that. It was a bad showing on for the Steelers fans to be on national TV, see all those empty seats. But I couldn't believe that when I saw it, and I was really disappointed with the fans. So hopefully next week the Steelers will survive once again, because if Ben does not play, which I don't think he will, huge game with the Ravens, and you just got to hope that they can pull out a win. Now we're going to move on to Pitt and Connecticut this past Friday. Pitt's season was pretty much on the line. They came off a momentum-building loss. I don't know if there are such things, but a momentum-building loss against Notre Dame. They hung with them, went to 3 overtimes, and they ended up losing, of course, by 3. And what happens? Halftime, 24-0 Connecticut lead. And believe it or not, I did not watch a lot of the game. I stick to my stomach. I couldn't believe it. They were getting blown out. Connecticut's one of the worst offensive teams in college football. So I was really stunned by that. But Pitt made a game out of it. They ended up scoring 17 unanswered points, but it was just too late. It was about 3 minutes left. Connecticut was, I think it was like a 4th and 9, or 3rd and 9. And Aaron Donald got through the offensive line, he was on the ground, and he had a grasp of the quarterback for Connecticut, his leg. And he was still able to make the first down throw, and that sealed the game up. So now Pitt is now 4-6, and if they want to have any hope, they have to beat Rutgers, upset them at Heinz Field on the 24th, and then win at South Florida. I could see Pitt losing both games, because the running game against Connecticut was dead. Ray Graham, 21 carries, 48 yards. That was pathetic. Russell Shell wasn't there either. He was invisible. So it's really appalling, to say the least, because Pitt has had struggles so much in Connecticut, and this year Connecticut was not a good team. Yes, they had a good defense, but it's just come to the point where Pitt is playing bad against these horrible teams, and it's embarrassing. And my mistake, Graham had 15 carries for 41 yards, and Shell 6 for 23, so the running game was not there. And Tino Sunseri, yeah, he was kind of efficient again. 19 of 34 for 302, no picks, no touchdowns, or my mistake. He had a touchdown pass, but I'm glad this is his final year, because he just has done nothing for Pitt at all in his time here. And I know you can say a lot of it goes to the different coaches, the offensive coordinators, but he does not look like a good quarterback to me at all. And he blamed the loss pretty much on Kevin Harper against Notre Dame, which is a quarterback you don't do. And he didn't blame himself for this loss against Connecticut. He was saying about the schemes and the blocking. That's something you don't do. I mean, he's a fifth-year senior. He should know this. Personally, I don't think Pitt's going to make a bowl game. I see them going 5-7. I think they're going to lose to Rutgers, barely beat South Florida. Not a good way to start for Paul Christ, but with the players he has, Sunseri, I'll be glad to see him go. And then Chad Wojtek will come in. Hopefully he'll help this Pitt team get better next year, and with more recruits, I mean, why wouldn't they be a little better? But it was just 1-4 in the Big East. Not the way you want to go out, but so be it. They just find ways to lose, and that's what bad teams do. Well, now I want to talk about Pitt basketball, because 2-0 so far to start off the year. They beat Mount St. Mary's on, I believe it was Friday night, 80-48, 32-point win. And in this game, I mean, Pitt never really looked like they were in any jeopardy of losing, which is good because you don't want to see that against these types of teams. Many people call them cupcakes, but it's really nice to see that Pitt is able to take care of business when they should. And in this game, probably one of the big players was Talib Zanna. He was 10 for 12, 20 points in 20 minutes. And then Trey Woodall added 14. And then Trey Ziegler added 11 off the bench. You get that kind of production, that'll propel you to win games. And when I haven't watched the team yet, they haven't had any games on TV. It's reminding me of when they had Aaron Gray, Levon Kendall, Levance Fields, Carl Krauser, when they had the Sam Young, DeJuan Blair, Brad Wanamaker. They had these guys that had big games. When you have 5 players that every so often will have a game where they score 20, 8 rebounds, 25 points, you're a good team. And it showed last night when Pitt played host to Fordham. J.J. Moore came off the bench, 20 points. I mean, that was huge. When they put him in, they pulled away from Fordham. And you're getting good production from Steven Adams. You're getting good production from James Robinson. 2 freshmen that are going to help this team. It's good to see. And with Trey Woodall on the floor and Robinson, you got 2 point guards essentially, which will provide matchup problems for other teams. So I see nothing but positives for Pitt moving forward in this year. And I'm really excited for tonight because they will be on TV, ESPNU, hosting Lehigh in the preseason NIT. It'll be at Pitt. And they're going to have their hands full a little bit because Lehigh, they dominated Robert Morris last night. And C.J. McCollum, who is picked to be, he's on the preseason All-American team, tied for the 5th spot, essentially, with Isaiah Cannon of Murray State. He can put up 30 points a game, no problem. Last year, he averaged 23 points a game. He's a superstar player. He will be in the NBA. And you know how Pitt has had trouble with superstar players in the past, especially in the NCAA tournament. Now, I don't think Lehigh's team, other players on the team, are strong enough to keep up with Pitt because of the balance Pitt has with the starting lineup and the bench. But I see Pitt ultimately winning this game. I can't see them losing at home. I mean, of course, last year they lost to Long Beach State at home, and that's what kind of started their downward spiral when they were ranked. But I just see with the good mix of balance with the guys in the front court with Adams, Zanna, Taylor, and then in the back court, with Moore, Woodall, Ziegler, Robinson, the sky's the limit for this Pitt team. And I know you don't really want to keep track of the rankings, but Pitt has moved now into the top 30 after 1 week. So, and if they beat Lehigh by a substantial margin, that might get them in the top 25, depending on if the teams in front of them lose. So I know that's early, but it's just a nice thing to have to know that the team you're covering is ranked. So I'm really excited to see Steven Adams. I think it's going to be a good game, 9 o'clock tonight. I'm really excited about watching it. Now I also want to mention something about baseball news. They recently announced the Rookie of the Year awards. Mike Trout for the American League for the Angels, no surprise there, unanimous decision. And Bryce Harper was the National League Rookie of the Year, edging out Wade Miley and Todd Frazier. Not surprised at all. They're going to be 2 great players. Trout probably will have a couple MVPs. I don't know if Harper may get an MVP in his future, but I think Trout's definitely the better of the 2. And the MVP awards will be announced 2 days from now, Thursday. It's either going to be Trout or Cabrera in the American League. I think it should be Cabrera, though, because he won the Triple Crown. Has been done since '67. And in the National League, I don't see anyone winning it but Buster Posey, just because, they voted before the playoffs, but he helped that team a lot when they suspended Cabrera. He was a force in the playoffs. I just think he's the clear-cut number 1. And second place, I think it's going to be McCutchen. I think he'll have a slight edge over Yadier Molina. I think Braun will end up in last because even though he posted up great numbers again, I just don't think people are going to vote for him just because of the whole steroid incident. Even though he admitted that he says that he didn't do it, I just don't think he'll get enough votes. And I think Chase Headley will be fourth. I mean, he led the National League in RBIs. He came on late, but the Padres weren't a good team. So I think McCutchen's going to finish in second. That'll be quite an accomplishment for him, but obviously he wants to win more. He wants to win MVP. He's not finishing second. But some of the other awards though that were announced earlier, McCutchen got a Gold Glove for the outfield, and he also got Silver Slugger. So he's racking up some awards here, and he was voted as the best defensive player at his position. So among his peers, and also for the Pirates. So, and of course he was their MVP. So I'm glad that he's being acknowledged. He's getting these accolades. And the sky's the limit for him. I see a couple MVPs in his future. More Gold Gloves, of course, and a lot of more Silver Sluggers. And some batting titles as well. And also for the Manager of the Year will be announced today, actually. And I see the National League going to Davey Johnson of the Nationals. He just had a great year there. And for the American League, it could be co-Manager of the Year with Buck Showalter for Baltimore and Bob Melvin for Oakland. But I'm going to have to give it to Buck Showalter and the Orioles just because of the division that they were in. I think he deserved it. And also on the NHL front, no news really. They've had some more talks. They haven't really come close to any deals. They said they would want to try to have it done so that they're playing hockey the first week of December. And right now it's still not looking good. So if they can't have a deal set by November 30th, I don't think there's going to be hockey at all. I think all hope is lost. Crosby should just go play overseas. And yeah, another lost season in the NHL. Another lockout. Not good for the league. But that'll do it, though, for today's episode. Next week, we'll be getting into Steelers Ravens. Ben, did he play? Was it Leftwich? Was it Batch? Did Polamalu return? We'll get into that. Who's going to be in first place after that game? Obviously, if the Ravens win, they'll still be in first. If not, the Steelers win, then they'll be in first. Talk about Pitt. They go over the Lehigh game which is happening tonight, and then they get to play Oakland at the Peterson Event Center on Saturday. Pitt football will be off, so probably won't be talking about them that much next week. Any other things happening with the NHL we'll get into, and if there's any big free agent moves, anything the Pirates do over the offseason or over the next week, I'll get into that. And also, I'd like to say that next Tuesday, as well as the normal show, I will be doing the Pirate Season in Review show. There'll be a whole episode dedicated to that. I'll give my grades, some of the top plays of the year, some of the more memorable moments, some of the bad moments, the outlook I see for the team next year, all that fun stuff about the Pirates, as the winter meetings will be coming up shortly within about 2 to 3 weeks in December. So that'll do it. So you just listened to the Sports Wrap. Signing off, I'm Michael Kravetz.